30 Days of Persuasion Plays with me, Paul Macetta. Welcome to the next episode. Very important episode. I know I say that about all these episodes, but they are important. They're all important. But the reason why this one is important is because this one, it's important for two reasons. Number one, it ties into a psychological fact that we first discovered in Dr. Robert Cialdini's best-selling book, Influence, the Science of Persuasion, which was published over 30 years ago. People come to me and they say, Paul, how can I master the art of persuasion? How can I master influence? I tell them, go buy all my courses. Spend all your money on my stuff. That'll help you. But what I also tell them is to pick up Dr. Robert Cialdini's book. It's probably the first book that I ever read on this topic. The guy has put in so much time, money, energy, resources into sharing the knowledge of how the psychology of influence works. So definitely pick it up. But in that book, he talks about a case study. And in the case study, I don't remember the exact numbers involved in the case study, but in the case study, he talks about how there were a bunch of people waiting online to make Xerox copies of something. And he wanted to test the ability of someone to cut the line by simply changing the way they talk to the people on the line. And the short version of the story is that the woman on the line was able to increase her compliance rate. So the amount of times that people said yes by more than double when she used the word because when asking to cut the line. So when she told them, can I cut the line? I have to make some copies. A couple of people said yes. When she said, can I cut the line because I have to make some copies because I'm in a rush? Almost everyone said yes. And really what that circles into in today's lesson is that people are more likely to comply with a request that is justified. So when you give somebody a reason why you're asking them to comply, they are more likely to comply. So just simply telling them why makes them more persuadable. Perfect example is if you got to call out of work. So if you have to call out of work and you can't work on a certain day, I used to see this all the time with employees. They would tell me, I can't come into work today, or I can't work tomorrow. And what that leaves me thinking are all different types of assumptions as to why. What is it? Do they want to sleep in late? Are they going on another job interview? Do they have something more important to do? When all they simply had to do was give me a reason why, and that would lower my defenses and make me more persuadable. So step number one is always explain why you're asking for compliance. Give them a reason. Listen, like I said, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. 30 years ago, Cialdini figured out that you can increase the amount of compliance that you get from people by simply using the word because. So why not use it? Why not utilize it to your advantage? Give people a reason why you're asking for compliance. If they are still resistant, explain why it matters to you. Explain to them why this is important to you. And step number three is if you're in a situation where you're presenting a product, a service, or an offer, so in other words, it's a two-sided thing. It's not like you're just asking for something and they're getting nothing in return. Explain why it matters to them. Now, there's a very important part to this, right? So let's say you're in an interaction where you're selling a product or a service where your objective is to get paid and their objective is to solve a problem or to gain a benefit in life, and your product solves that problem. So again, you would explain why you're asking for compliance. You would explain why it matters to you. You would then explain why it matters to them, why this is important for them to get it into their hands, why it's important that the transaction gets done in terms of what's there to benefit them. But let's say you were having a conversation that was one-sided. So let's say you needed to call out of work. That's a very one-sided thing, right? The boss isn't really getting anything out of that interaction. Create something that the person will get from that interaction. So tell them, I can't work tomorrow because I have to take my mom to the doctor. This is important to me because my mom is getting old and she's losing her health, and it's very important that I'm there for her. but here's what I can do to make this up to you. I'll work an extra 2 hours on Tuesday, or I'll come into work on Saturday, or I'll work through lunch all of next week, whatever. There's your opportunity to explain why it matters to them. If there's no immediate benefit that they're going to gain, then create one and then explain what that benefit is going to be. So again, number one, explain why you're asking for compliance. Explain why it's important to you or why it matters to you. And number three, explain why it should matter to them. Remember, you can drastically increase the amount of compliance that you get from people, the amount of yeses that you get from people by simply justifying why you're asking them and using the word because. I'll see you in the next episode.